Good afternoon, and welcome to the National Urban League's Digital Career Success Series, brought to you by the Urban League's Jobs Network and myself as your host, Jody Brockington. Today's topic is one of my most favorite, which is building your personal board. It could be a board of advisors, board of directors. People call it all different kinds of things. But today, with our great featured guest, Minda Harts, aka the Memo LLC, and she'll be bringing up her next adventure in that space. We'll be talking to you about building your personal board, who needs to be on it, why you need one, and why this comes under our first part of this year's series in 2019 of Press Start on Your Career. A personal board is something that you truly need to be successful and have people around you that can give you advice, information, support you, even give you the tough news and give you the things you don't want to hear but need to. And our guest today, Minda Hart, is definitely an FOJ, a friend of Jody. We actually met in a place that I keep telling all of you need to spend more time, which is LinkedIn, due to lots of folks telling me, you need to meet this Minda Harts. And I'm like, who is she? And they're like, you guys are almost the same person. You guys are helping women in their careers, making sure that they are getting what they need at the table between the pay gaps and also places that they say women of color are not. You guys are both weaving a similar weave in different places. So I got to meet her and wanted to bring her to you guys today because not only is she an adjunct professor, she's a founder of the Memo LLC, and she'll tell you a little bit more about that. She has been noted by many companies such as American Express and others, and really wants to make sure that all of you here, men included, even though we both focus on women, we need men to move forward too, secure a seat at whichever table you are looking at. It's one thing to be invited, it's another one to have a seat, and then it's another to be able to have a voice and make change. So without further ado, Minda, please join us today. The floor is yours, and we are excited to hear about what we need to do to build our personal board. You need to unmute yourself.
Yes, that would be helpful.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with all of you because building your personal board is so important. You are your best advocate, and only you know you as a business, as an asset. And as Jody mentioned, my name is Minda Harts. I am the founder of the Memo. We help women of color secure their seat at the table, and I run that company with my co-founder Lauren. And yes, as Jody mentioned, we do a lot of work with women of color, but it's all hands on deck for equity, diversity, and inclusion to take place in the workplace. We all need to be catalysts and advocates of each other, but most importantly, how are we working on our personal board? And so with our time together, we're going to talk about that. And again, I'm excited that you're here because I want you to make sure that you're engaging in the questions box so that at the end, I don't want you to leave without any of your questions answered. And if we don't get to some of your questions, then I will definitely make sure that you have my contact information so we can stay connected. But before we jump into it, let's launch our first poll so I can get a feel for the room and where you are on your journey. So if you see there on your screen, it says, or if you're listening by phone, how do you feel about your current personal board? So there's no wrong answer. It's just, we're all being vulnerable today. We're going to talk about it. So you have some options there on your screen, great, or meh, we can all be doing better, right? So we'll give you a couple of seconds to figure out where that is. Okay. And what board? Yeah, I didn't want to forget that. You also, maybe you don't have a board yet. Okay, cool. So you're in the right place. We're going to hopefully fix that by the end of today. So basically what we're going to do next is our objectives. So it's important to understand why we're here and learn why building your personal board is important. Understand why self-advocacy can be difficult because asking people for help or asking people to invest in us is not an easy feat. And some of us, if you're like me, hate asking people for help or oftentimes think we have to do everything on our own. But I want to tell you today that success is not a solo sport. It takes a team, it takes a village, it takes a community. We're going to review 2 examples, little case studies, and talk about what that could look like. Learn the connection between advocacy and boundaries, because those are important too in relationship building. And then also create strategies to maintain your personal board, because what's the point of building and doing all the work for having your board and then you don't keep up with them? They don't know how to invest in you and they don't know what you're up to, right? So we want to make sure that we are feeding our board and making sure that they have what they need for us as well. So the other thing I want you to think of as we are going through this is why self-advocacy matters. And part of your personal board, I want you to think about it in 2 ways. 2 great men, and you may have heard of them. One is this prophet by the name of Jay-Z. He said, I am not a businessman, I am a businessman. And I want you to look at yourself as a business. It doesn't mean that you have to be an entrepreneur. You can be an intrapreneur. You can be working for yourself or someone else, but you are the asset. You are the business. And so there's another one for those who might not be as into Jay-Z, but you're into Jesus. He says, I am the vine and you are the branches, and we all need branches. We all need people, like I said, on our team, those who are invested in our success. And so as you think about yourself as the brand, as the asset, what do people need to know about you and your goals in order for them to want to invest in your success? And just like any company, most companies, they have a board of directors. And so if you're a business, why wouldn't you have people who you go to for advice, or people who help you serve as mentors or sponsors? And we'll talk about that a little more in depth in a little later in the slides, but it's important that you also look at yourself like a business. You need a team, you need a bench, you need players on your team that can help you move forward. So as we're going through the slides, I want you to think about or jot it down. Who right now do you go to for advice, right? But if you look at it a little more strategically, how are you using those people, or who do you need to recruit in a sense? We just got done with the All-Star game, right? So who do you need to recruit on your team to help you get the best return on your investment? Because you all are here, you're doing the work, you're investing in yourself. Now it's time to find the right people to bring them on board and be on your board. So advocacy matters, but you can't build a board without telling people what you need, articulating that. And as I mentioned before, sometimes it's hard to tell people what we need, right? But again, success is not a solo sport. There's no way that I could have had success in my career prior to the memo, or even forms of success in the memo, without a team of people, family, friends, my investors, my board, my co-founder. There's so many people that played a role in even why I'm sitting here with you today. So as I mentioned before, it's sometimes easier for us to advocate for others than it is for ourselves. Have you ever been in a situation where you could ask for something for somebody else, or maybe you're a manager and you can ask for things for your team, or maybe a colleague who is not getting what they need and you step in and advocate for them? So what does it look like to advocate for yourself? What does it look like to say, you know what, in the next 6 months, I want to write a book. Who do I need on my team to help me stay accountable? And really, a personal board is just another way for accountability partners, people that know what you're interested in, and they have the resources or the information to help you move forward. And for those who are looking for more resources, because I know we only have a short time together, but Malcolm Gladwell has a book called The Tipping Point. And in that book, he talks about different people, and he doesn't necessarily call them a board, but I'm calling them a board. But there's people in your lives that will help you build that out. So you might know people who are connectors. So they may not have necessarily the resources to invest in you themselves, but they know other people maybe who've written books, so they can introduce you to those people. Or you do have people who are like the salesmen who they'll help you with your pitch deck or something like that. So just, you have to get really clear about what it is you need and who you need on your team. And back in the day, there was something called MySpace, and maybe I'm dating myself just a tad, but on MySpace, it was a similar platform to MySpace, a social platform, and you were able to have your top 8. And so I want you to think about your personal board. I'm not saying by the end of today you need to go run out the door and find 8 people to add to your board, but think about those top people and you add them organically, who you need to be an advocate for you. So when you're not in the room, who are those people that are advocating on your behalf? And you can look at your board in 2 ways. And this is how I kind of look at mine. And 2 ways is when I'm in the workplace, who's advocating for me? And then on the outside. So maybe on your 9 to 5, you might need one of your colleagues to be an advocate for you. They might be on your board. Somebody from the HR department might want to be on your board. Obviously, your supervisor, because it's important to have their buy-in on anything that you do. So you need a good rapport with them. And someone in IT, right? So if your computer goes haywire, something that might take 48 hours to fix, you know Cindy, and you can, holler at her and make something happen a lot faster. So I just want you to think about who are those people that you need. And obviously having a robust group, male, female, those of different races, those who identify differently than you, age-wise, diversity in thought, diversity in generations. We live in such an amazing time right now. We have the most generations working together in the workforce in history. And so, if you are a baby boomer, get a millennial on your board. If you're a millennial, get a Gen X person on your board. So think through what this could look like, because having all of the same people is almost like having 5 or 8 of yourself, right? So you want to think through what that looks like. And why? Why is any of this important? Well, I want to stop and tell you that, again, if you get nothing out of what I'm saying today, is success is not a solo sport. It's important that you have people who are holding you accountable, that you're building relationships with. There's a woman in my life that I met 2 years ago. Yeah, I guess we're going on 2 years ago. And I met this person. Her name is Tiffany DeFue. You can look her up. She has a book out called Drop the Ball. And so very good book. So if you're looking for something to add to your reading list. But I was in Silicon Valley at a business dinner in the San Francisco area. And I met a woman, another Black woman, and we were celebrating her. I never met her. A friend invited me. So I flew out to Silicon Valley, attended this private dinner, and I was having conversation with the woman that we were honoring. And she says, you live in New York City. You should connect with Tiffany. She's invested in women and girls, and that's something that, you're into, and I think you all should connect. And so it made sense, right? And so went to go meet. Come to find out, Tiffany and I worked at the same co-working space in New York City. And so we ended up getting a chance to meet. And through time, and we'll talk about it later, relationship building, when I first met her, I didn't ask her, Tiffany, will you be on my personal board of directors? Will you be my mentor? Will you be my sponsor? I articulated my why. I understood ahead of time what it was that I needed or hoped to obtain from Tiffany in terms of advice. And I was already clear about that, because she's a busy woman, and you have to think about it in terms of understanding why you need certain people on your board, not just because you've known Billy since you were in the 3rd grade. Billy may serve a certain purpose, but in terms of you as a business, who do you need on your team? And so it took time, it took relationship building, but it made sense because I was starting a book writing process, and Tiffany was just about to put her book out. And so adding Tiffany to my personal board, if she was open to that, then it worked out well. So as I wrote my book, I had somebody on my board that could invest in me, that could pour into me, that I could ask questions, because it's a new journey that I'm on. And so you might think through, what are some of your goals, and who in various spaces, and to Jody's point, LinkedIn is a great place, because there's so many people with really great expertise that you don't have to have, but you can take advantage of what they have to offer. And so right here on your screen, you can see that sometimes they say that women don't necessarily ask or advocate for themselves as much as men do, but this is 2019, we're shifting that narrative. And so I don't want you to say to yourself, oh, I'm not an extrovert, or I'm not an introvert, I'm an introvert, I'm an extrovert. Like, none of those labels matter. If you are a business, get clear on what you want out of the next year or 2 or 3 or 4, and figure out who you need on your team. So don't let those labels, don't let your insecurities, don't let your fears, your curiosity has to be bigger than your fear. And so I want you to think through how you do that. Don't let people tell you because you don't have a Ivy League degree or you don't have X, Y, and Z that you can't connect with certain people or you can't ask for what you want. And so self-advocacy is part of building your board. People need to know how they can help you. So how do we advocate effectively? And that goes back to the why. So we're building on this theme. You don't want to, if I would have went to Tiffany and I didn't understand my why, I didn't understand what my goals were, she may have never eventually joined my board because I wasn't clear. And I needed to be clear on my ask for her. And so when you're thinking through who your personal board are, you need to figure out what it is you need and what type of board you need. Maybe in your case right now, you want to go into leadership. And so maybe you need some people on your board who have served in various leadership capacities. And so when you get in certain situations, you have people you can tap into and they can offer you help or advice. Or you want to leave your current job and transition into entrepreneurship. Who do you need on your board that are doing that? And so it might be someone in finance that you need on your board. And obviously, running a good, successful business requires you to be requires some financial literacy. And so having someone in a financial aspect on your board makes sense, right? Do you need 8 people on your board with financial acumen? It probably wouldn't be a bad thing, but you might want someone who has marketing expertise. You might have somebody who has sponsorship expertise. So think about why you need people and what that looks like, but it's going to take you to kind of figure out, craft out what it is you need from folks before you go to them. You're the business, so you got to have a plan together before you approach people. So you're probably thinking, oh, this might be a little daunting, right? And we don't want you to feel that way, but I want you to look at the screen and I want to give you some kind of tangible examples of how I went about building some of my personal board members, because I think a good story, a good example always lends a little more practice versus theory. And so at the top of your screen, you'll see Steve. He's a senior staff member, and we'll call him a sponsor. But there was a time that I used to work with a gentleman named Steve. And on paper, I knew that I could do something. Have you ever known that you have the capacity to really kill it, but you just need the access and you need the opportunity? Well, I was junior consultant in my role at the time, and I worked on the same floor as this guy named Steve. And Steve was a senior staff member. Like, he was the guy to know, right? But he was in the corner office. I was in my cube, so it was never going to be very rare that Steve would, if ever, would ever come to my cube and say, hey, girl, what's going on? Or find out what's going on with me, right? So I knew that Steve was somebody that I would want a part of my team, a part of my personal board. But I didn't know Steve. Again, a couple of notches removed from the ladder, so I didn't necessarily have the opportunity, so I thought, but I had to create that opportunity. So Steve traveled a lot, so he wasn't in the office much, but what I started to do was make rounds around the office. So if I knew that Steve once a month had standing appointments, I would make sure that when his door opened, I would walk by, so he'd at least see my face. Now, I do it at different times. It's very strategic, not like stalker employee, but I would make sure that he at least saw my face. And I would do that, a couple times a month, just so, and then eventually just seeing my face, I would be able to say hi and he would say hi back. And then I started to build off of him seeing me. Now when we see each other in the elevator, it's not so awkward. We can say hello. And then eventually, after 6 months of kind of doing this thing, again, knowing my why, I knew that if I had Steve's buy-in, if I had Steve vouching for me, there might be opportunities for advancement, growth, and more money. And so now, again, I didn't know that if Steve would be willing. I just had to do my part to let him know that I exist. And then eventually, I as they say, I shoot my shot with Steve. And one time he was out in the hallway and I said, hey, Steve, we'd kind of had a little rapport at that time. And I said, I would love to spend, maybe 15 minutes with you and just talk to you about some of the work that I'm doing. And At the time, you could say pick your brain. People wouldn't shame you in the streets for using that language. But back then, pick your brain was a thing. And so I got the 15 minutes with Steve. I had my questions about upward mobility and et cetera, et cetera. And long story short, Steve, I was able to articulate what I wanted out of the company for Steve. And later down the line, Steve started checking for me. And when opportunities came up, he invited me to the table. And I had my seat at the table because of Steve's sponsorship. So something that on paper might have taken me 10, 15 years to obtain title-wise, Steve elevated me within a year to being in the room where he was. I had more money. I was traveling. I was staffing senior members of the team. And so just that interaction, that engagement, and I didn't even have to ask Steve. That happened organically, but that happened through relationship building. He saw that I was about my business and he wanted to be part of my team. And I am forever grateful for Steve's advocacy. But first, that required me to be an advocate for myself and knowing my why. So I was scared. I don't want you to think that I was not scared to engage Steve, but had I never done that, had I never started making my rounds, it might have been really hard. And it may have taken me a lot longer to move up in the company had I not had Steve to say, no, Minda can do this. And as a person of color, one of the only ones, I needed Steve, who is a white man who could make that call. And so I needed a diverse personal board. And another instance, Janet, when I'm thinking about who I need, Janet, she was somebody in human resources who I befriended. She was a work friend, and she was able to give me great advice. She was able to let me know when certain things, certain opportunities were coming down the pipeline, certain openings in different departments. And so it's nice just to be able to have somebody who's looking out for you. So having these various people, and sometimes you might even be friends with someone like Janet, and it may not pan out that they're ever necessarily helpful in the ways that you need, but you just never know. A relationship that you build with someone today could be a return on your investment 10 years from now, or it may never be, or maybe you are there to be able to support them. And so as we're thinking about our board, it's not just what we are able to get from people, but it's also that reciprocity. And that's where relationship building is, because nobody wants to feel like you're using them. And so remember to make it organic. And most of the people on my board, my personal board, in a variety of ways, all of these things have happened through relationship building. They've got to know me so they feel comfortable with me. And sometimes that takes, just like you go on a date, sometimes you can go on a date with somebody and it may feel as though you have known them your whole entire life. And then you may date somebody where, even after the year, you don't feel like you know them. So it takes time, is what I'm saying. So some people might do things for you immediately, and sometimes it may take years and years and years. So I think you get the point. So what is advocating for yourself about? It's speaking up. That's important. Knowing your worth. It starts with that confidence factor. You got to know. There is a quote that I often, when I'm feeling down or feeling like I'm not worth it, or worthy of certain opportunities or people on my board, I think of this quote, and I wrote it down because I want to make sure that I get it absolutely right for you. And it says, beware of feeling like you're not good enough to deserve it. And Audre Lorde said that. And I want you to know that if you've done the work, you deserve it. You're here today. You've been doing everything, investing in yourself. So why wouldn't people want to join your board? It's a pleasure for someone to be on your board and take ownership in you as a company. So remember, taking and creating opportunities. I gave you the example with Steve. Steve didn't come tapping me on the shoulder at my cube saying, hey, I want to give you an opportunity, Minda. I had to create those on my own and talk to people and make sure that people understood what my why was. Respecting yourself and others. Again, we don't want to come across like a car salesman that we're only about the sale or we're only about getting what we need out of people. We want an organic, we want a respectful board, because you want people to be on your board for the long haul. You don't want people just to be like a one and done. And we know people like that, and we know situations like that maybe they only help us that one time, and that's great. That gave us that leverage. But what does it look like when you have people who are invested in your success from start to finish? That's where you really get your you really win when you have people who are invested in that way. And oftentimes I try to seek out people who want that investment, not just that one and done type of thing. And again, setting appropriate boundaries. It doesn't, I talk about mentorship and sponsorship. Those people are part of your board as well. And you don't necessarily have to speak to these people every single day for them to be invested, but you have to keep up. You have to let them know what's going on with you. For example, I have people who I would consider on my board, and they make introductions to other people for me. And so when those people make introductions, I make it my business to make sure that I let them know, hey, Sarah, thank you for introducing me to Billy. I have a meeting with him next week. Or, hey, Sarah, I had that meeting with Billy and it worked out really well, blah, 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 blah. Like going back to that well and letting them know that they added value, and I thank them for that. People want to be thanked. People want to know, and they want to keep up with you. That's why people want to help you. So how do you be your own hype person? Have you ever been to a concert and you have like the person with the, well, let's say a rap concert, the person with the mic, they are doing their thing, but then they have this hype person on the side. Like, you are your best advocate. You are your own hype person, but you have a team of people around you. If you feed them the right talking points about what your need and your why, they can hype you up. They can be there to support you on opportunities, but they have to know how. So it's up to you to be your hype person. It's up to you to articulate why it's important for them to invest in you. And as you're thinking about some things, money, so you might be thinking, I'm not sure where to start. I don't even know how I might find these people. I don't even know what my why is right now, but I know I need a team of people to help me along the way. So think of it in these terms or in these buckets. Money and promotion, maybe that's people you need on your board to help you maybe gain more money. Maybe you want to move out of your current apartment and to buy a home. You know, who do you need on your board to help you stay accountable for that? Or you want to ask for a raise. You might need some coaches on your team. You might need some coaches on your bench to help you do that and work through how to get your promotion. Even your boss, think about your manager as someone who should be on your team. If you don't feel like your manager is invested in your success, articulate what you need from them so that they can be invested in your success. Tell them what you need. Sometimes, or not even sometimes, we cannot be ambivalent about what we need. And so make sure that you are articulating that, you know, in terms of your manager or opportunity. Stretch assignments, you'll find with Steve, one of the things that I was able to do is do a couple of stretch assignments. And through those stretch assignments, other people were able to see what other areas I was proficient in or, you know, had expertise in. So I was able to volunteer for things that maybe in my normal kind of day-to-day activity that people wouldn't have necessarily saw as a strength, but now I get to flex in a whole different way. And so professional development, this is another great opportunity for you to meet other people and then tap into some of those areas of where you can decide, you know, where you need a board. So take advantage of those opportunities. Even this is another great opportunity. If you have professional development opportunities through your job or certain webinars, maybe even offering up your expertise and getting people to buy into what you offer. And let's see, for some reason, oops, sorry about that. Allyship and identity. It's important that you figure out that you have good relationships at work. So when you think about who you need to have on your team or how you build out your team, if you don't have good relationships with the people you work with or do business with, then figure out how you can be a better ally, how you can be better in that area too. And that reciprocity is key. So I don't want you to forget about that. So what does it look like in real time? A couple of things that I want you to think about as you're building up your confidence, because again, if you're like me, it's really hard to tell people what you need and then ask them to be a part of it. And so we'll kind of work our way through this pyramid, and everything that I do, I kind of think about it through Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And if you are not familiar with that, please feel free to Google it and you can see kind of this pyramid of needs. And but in this way, we're looking at it, working our way to the top. And so building confidence. And if you need to build your confidence, that starts with being really clear on what you need from your personal board, because people can't help you. And I may sound like a broken record, but they can't help you if they don't know what you need. And if you don't understand what you need, then it's hard to articulate. It's hard to go before them with confidence because you're not really sure exactly. And it's okay to be unsure. That's why you take this foundational time to figure out what it is you need and who you need. And you may not even know who those people are yet, but you can also just jot down, I need somebody in this department, or I need somebody in this area to help invest in my personal brand. So building that confidence, and that might require you to continue coming to webinars like this, or it may require you to hire a coach or take a public speaking course, whatever it is you might need to build your confidence. Make sure you do that investment, and then prepare for that. So when you have just like a business plan, put your personal business plan together, and what the roles are that you would need people to play in your life. So prepare, look at yourself again, like a businessman or woman. Prepare, get what you need to put your mission statement, your values, understanding how this all works together. Next, you build alliances. It's really important to do that because, again, you want people to be thinking of you when you're not even in the room. And I want to stop here because alliances are so important. And you think about, like even Jody mentioned at the beginning, people were telling her to connect with me. People were saying to me, connect with her. People had to know us and be able to vouch for us and understand what type of work we do in order for us to build alliances. So the more that you're out there, the more that you're articulating your why. It didn't matter that me and Jody necessarily didn't know each other, but people knew that we have synergy, right? And so if you're out there doing that, and people on her board knew that I was good person to connect with and we could do good work together. And then also people on my board could do the same. So even when you're not working, people are working on your behalf. And so that's really important. And then make the ask. The ask may look different at different times. Like for Tiffany, for example, I didn't necessarily ask her, hey, Tiffany, would you join my board? Or I didn't ask Steve or Janet if they would join my board. Those things happened organically. And sometimes people will just automatically join. And you don't have to have this formal offer letter that you're emailing to them. Like, will you be on my board? It doesn't always have to feel that way. I know we live in a world where sometimes we need some of those concrete yes or no's, but people, if they're investing in you, they're part of the journey, and you'll know that. And then also too, you'll find people that you may want that just, it's not a good fit right now, and don't give up. And then in some cases you may have to ask, say, hey, I'm going through this point in the road, and I would love to be able to just touch base with you, a few times throughout the year if I have questions by phone or by email. If they say yes, that person is is on your board. So, it doesn't have to, it can look a lot of different ways. And if you don't have those people identified yet, use LinkedIn, use Twitter, use social media. A lot of people are giving out free advice that can serve as your personal board of directors in many ways. Some people are fictitiously on my board that I have never met, but they are able to provide information and guidance because they give out this information for free, YouTube, those sorts of things. So there's plenty of ways of going to conferences. There's ways for you to build your board. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to know these people. And then execute and follow through. If you get nothing out of what I'm saying today, which I hope you have, I hope something has triggered you to write down and get excited about building out and enhancing your personal board. But execute and follow through. If you took the time to build the confidence, to prepare, to build these alliances, to bring people on your board, it's up to you as the CEO of yourself, as the face of your personal business, that you execute and that you follow through with people. One of the things that I have to do with certain investors, I have to send them updates and about what's going on with the business, or maybe someone who wasn't able to invest or sponsor us, last year, I send them an update of what we're doing now in case there's an opportunity for them to be engaged. And so you're building these great relationships. Don't just be one of those people that only hit up people when times are good or times are bad. Let people know what you're doing. Last time we spoke, I was building my business, wanted to give you an update that now I hired my first assistant. Let people know. People want to know what you're up to, and you have to follow through. Again, if you have people who are offering their social network, their contacts for you, let them know what's happened after you follow through. Either something may have happened or not, because the more that people feel like they can offer you things and that they can trust you, this is a trust thing, because nobody wants to be a part of something and then feel like they're getting burned. So remember the trust factor. They're vouching for you. So you want to make sure that you're following through and keeping up with what people have given you and what you've built yourself. So let's do a little bit of review here. I want you to be your best advocate. Only you know what it is you need. Only you know who you need on your board. So once you figure out your why, once you figure out who you need, then you can start who you need, then you can identify who those people are. So I want to launch a poll just to kind of get a feel. I know we went through a lot really fast, but I hope you understand that you are your best advocate and that you need people. Success is not a solo sport. So how excited are you to go out and maximize your relationships? I'm sure you already have some people in mind or relationships that you've already started to build that you can enhance by following up and following through. So we're going to launch that. And so you have ready, getting there. There's a couple options for you. All right, that's good. I'm glad. Ready, 66%, and getting there, 34%. And some of this you're just going to just let it sit, let it marinate a little bit in terms of what it looks like. And so don't feel daunted by the process. This is exciting. We are in February. There's so much left in 2019. Think about the excitement of what it's going to look like 6 months from now, who your personal board is. These people get to invest in you, and I'm so excited for you. And so you just got to go forth and kill it. You got to build that board, you know, and in 30 days, I don't want you to be sitting wondering, man, I wish I had some people invested in me. You got to go forth. You got to make it happen. And, you know, lastly, I just want to let you know that you can find me on these internets. I am Minda Harts across all social media platforms. My information, my name is spelled on the screen, so go for it. And then find me on, I'm most active on Twitter at Minda Harts, and I have a new book coming out August 20th this year with Hachette Book Group called The Memo, What Women of Color Need to Know to Secure a Seat at the Table. It is the lean in for women of color, but it's not just for women of color, it's for all of us, because we have to understand how to better engage with one another in the workplace, and there's no one size fits all. So it's available for pre-order. I hope that you will go and support that book. So thank you so much, and I think now we're gonna head over into questions time.
Yes, well, Minda, lots of great information there. You know, even social media has been picking us up a little, so I understand that you're going to be a guest on the Career Seeker Show with Ken Johnson, a good friend of mine, definitely a close FJ and one of my personal board of advisors, and definitely part of the National Urban League and the Urban League Jobs Network family. So congrats, and I look forward to listening in on that. But today you gave us so many things to think about, and I think that there's a lot of people who are confused with a why, right? So there's a why you do something, right? There is a why of some of the people why you need people, right? So a lot of the questions were around, you know, what exactly is, you know, the heart of a why? Why do you need a why? And then how do you actually break that down to get what you need? Because some people are like, oh, I got my why down. And I'm like, some people just think it's I want to help, in your case, I want to help Black women, right? Is part of your why. But it's only, that's on the surface. It's deeper than that. And so often it seems like from some of the questions that they're getting stuck on that, like, oh, I got my why, so I'm good. But then having difficulty in the execution, finding the people, finding the job, asking for the raise, the stuff that comes after the why. So can you connect that just a little bit better?
Yes, absolutely. So oftentimes we might know our why, or we might think we know our why. And when I first started out in my career, I had no idea that I would be doing advocacy work for women of color. Obviously, I care about women of color, being one myself, but I didn't know what that really looked like, right? And so once I started my company, my why was advancing women of color in the workplace, but I didn't really know what to do after that. And so in order to build my team, build a personal board, I needed to figure out who I needed to help me execute that. And so that is just like, for example, I knew I needed to talk with other founders, right? And so in your case, or in some of the cases in the questions, let's use salary negotiation or asking for more. If you know that your why is to get more money because you want a new home or you want to take a new vacation, you want a new car, whatever, you understand that that is your why, but you need people on your board to help you do that. And so you have to figure out what is driving it on the surface. Is it just because you want more money, or is it because, you know what, I've done the work. I've been at my company, for 3 to 5 years. I've been at my company for 10 years, and I know that the market rate is X and I'm below that. And so you have some tangible examples as to to connect your why it's important that you want more money, because it's important to be able to enjoy your life and live your best life by having more. But who do you need to talk to? So thinking about who on your board could help make that happen. So think about the why connected to the execution. So obviously you need to have a good rapport with your manager, because they're the ones that could say yes or no to you. So you're articulating to them, and hopefully you're having one-on-one meetings. If you're not having those, you need to, as you're thinking about your why, start setting meetings and talk about some tangible goals to make sure that you are meeting or exceeding your expectations. So when you go ahead and ask for a raise, they have the buy-in there. But if you're not doing really great work, then there's some things you need to do on the foundation of that pyramid to set yourself up, that preparation. So if you go back to that part, you're building upon your why. And so you need your supervisor. They're the ones that can obviously do that. You also might need a career coach. That's someone who could be on your board, because you've never had to ask for something on that high caliber. Maybe you're asking for $10,000 to $20,000 more. That's a huge negotiation. You don't want to just like kick the door open and be willy-nilly about it. You need to practice, or you might join some more webinars and learn about how you make an ask. So that's, again, the preparation piece. And then you might need a friend on your board so that you can practice that ask with. And so I think that all three of those people, those are 3 people right now that could be on your personal board. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's great. There's folks that feel like it might be harder to do some of this solo or on their own. But, I think what you need to, like, what people need to speak to, and if you can speak to how to really think about the people you need on this personal board, or into, like, some people are also wanting to get people like you to join not just their personal board, but some of their organizations or the companies that they work for, or maybe they're running and they're the head of the Black Employee Network at their job, and they're having a hard time getting members. What does like really defining who you really need in your membership, not just your personal, like, when it goes beyond what you need personally. Now you have a couple of people on your personal board who you can ask, but those things that you need to define more. So, how do you then, once you've defined who you want, right? So I want 12 new women to join my organization, and I want them with this, I need someone in finance, I want someone who's a coach, I want someone who's in marketing. Once you find that, then what's next?
Yes, and so that's part of the building alliances, building the relationship building. And so all of these, going back to the pyramid, are these steps. Step by step, you're building. I know that sometimes we get so impatient that we want things to go from 0 to 100 real quick, but it starts with the why, and you prepare, and then you have to kind of do this sketch, almost like a business plan, in terms of who you think you want, right? So if you want someone like me to be on your board, or in your membership group, you might look at my website and say, oh, Minda's going to be speaking at this place next Tuesday, so I want to get a chance to meet her. I want to start building a relationship. So talking about that reciprocity piece, coming, showing up, showing that you're invested in me so that I can be invested in you. Or you might find me on LinkedIn and I post or I share different content. You might start to engage people in that way. So now that it's not so much a cold type of exchange, there's people that I engage with online that I've never met face to face. But if they pop in my inbox because of the relationship that we're building online, I would show up to something, or I feel comfortable making an introduction to them because they've been trustworthy online. So I don't want you to think that you don't have to start out with 6 or to 8 people necessarily, but first think about who those type of people are and where would you go to find them. So anybody you would want to connect with is 90 probably percent of the time online. So it's engaging people. Pick a platform. If Twitter is the platform, then start to follow people, start to retweet, start to engage them in certain content. If they're writing articles, start to respond to some of those. And that just kind of gets things going. And from there, you might be able to get their email address and start to build relationships, and then go for coffee. And then you'll be able to talk about some of the things that you need. Hey, I have this membership platform. I'd love for you to consider being a part of it. All of this is really, at the end of the day, it's relationship building. Like if you look at this, it's identifying what you need, who you need, and then building those relationships.
This is more straightforward, just a question. They wanted to know, are there any career book recommendations, more specifically around this mentorship and building a board, and really being able to maintain relationships? You did bring up the Malcolm Gladwell tipping point, of which I am definitely just a connector. A master connector, actually given to me by Mark Morial, gave me that title because he's like, oh, you know Jody? Oh, I know Jody, and da-da-da, she's master connector, right? So I connect people, right? So there's 4 things, 4 personalities. We all do them all, but we all fall under one of those areas more. So you gave 1. I gave 2 others, which are Keith Ferrazzi's Never Eat Alone, which is talking about how to always make a connection. Don't waste your time having lunch by yourself. He uses lunch or a meal, but there's always a moment, an opportunity where you can share with someone else instead of being by yourself, and to connect with someone that way. And then for women specifically, I said Women Don't Ask by Babcock, which really empowers more women and gives some statistics and background as to why sometimes some of the stuff that you're advising today in terms of building your personal board has sometimes been harder for women to do based on societal issues. So any other books that are on your bookshelf that you would tell people to also go out besides your own book? Because I will definitely promote that.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
Besides the memo.
Yes. So, but that doesn't come out till later this year, and you need your board built before August, or you need to start identifying those people. And so those are great books. I also do talk about networking. But I would say that there's a book by a woman named Kelly Hoey, and I want to get her spelling. So that's Kellly and then Hoey. And she has a really good book called Build Your Dream Network. And so I would definitely take a look at that, because she breaks networking down. And that's basically what building your board is. It's networking. So, don't get daunted by just, oh my God, I got to find these people and this, that, and the other. I mean, it's all about going out to meetup groups. It's all about going to conferences and keeping, when you get a business card, that's a potential board member. That's somebody, but you got to keep the relationship up. You have to, email them, invite them to things, those sorts of things. That's how you relationship build, and that's how you identify future people. Another thing, there's a book called Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss, and it's a really thick book, but he talks to all these amazing men and women about ways they built their career, and networking is part of it, and ways they've enhanced their networks, ways they've enhanced their careers, just kind of the secret sauce to how they built up their personal brand. And so that's another really great book.
Yeah, no, I love his 4-hour work week. That's been my personal goal, my why.
Yes.
In terms of, this falls directly into the next question, which is perfectly set up, which is, how often, do you cultivate building your board? And, my thing is, it depends on what how big you decide to build it, how much help you feel that you need. And then once you even have a board, a personal board, you also have to manage those relationships. So, I don't think that there's a direct answer, but for someone who's, let's look at it as for someone who's just starting, someone who already has a few members, and someone who, is kind of, I'll say mastering this, but still needs to add some more people. So at different stages, what's your advice, Minda?
Yeah, so I think that we're all, listen, even in my career, I'm in my, you may not know this, but I'm in my late 30s. I'm still building my board. I'm still maintaining. There's different boards that I need for different things. So for example, during my book writing process, I had to have people who, have been published authors, who've gotten book deals, who had to who ran a tour, a book tour. Like there were different things that I knew I needed along the book journey, and I had to get people invested so that I could ask them questions that they need. And so someone that I might have spoke to 6 months ago, now that the book is on pre-order, then I send them an email, or maybe we had a conversation about they want to be able to do like a conference and speak somewhere. So I send them an email saying, oh, have you heard about this opportunity? And so I'm sending them opportunities the same. So that, I think that's the key part is you don't have to email somebody every week, but at least at the bare minimum, stay in touch with people once a quarter. Because I think even if it's just, when their birth date is, right? Or that their daughter is going off to college, just to be able to say, hey, Bob, I know, Julie's going off to college, just wanted to, send best wishes. I mean, it doesn't have to be something so like novel, like every time you connect with them. And it may not even be about you, but it's just making sure that you're top of mind, and keeping them abreast of what's going on. But then also when you build relationships, you also know what's going on in their life. So if you come across something, then you can send them a message too. So you want to start to build up your relationships, at least once a quarter. Do that, because I know it can be a lot to manage our relationships, but the nice thing is you don't have time maybe to go out to coffee with 20 people that you met in a year, but you do have time to send them a birthday card, or you do have time to like something on LinkedIn or correspond in that way. It's just making sure that they see you. Oftentimes, there's friends I haven't seen all year long, but because we engage on email or social media, it feels like I see them once a week. So we have to reimagine what networking, what success, what board building looks like for us.
Gotcha. And then, back to the why. Has there been a time that you've had to change and redefine your why?
Yeah,
Personally.
I think yes, the answer is absolutely yes. And, when I started out in my career, my why was, first person in my family to graduate from college. So I wanted to make a lot of money. My why was very much just being able to, not live paycheck to paycheck. So it doesn't have to always be something like super like academic, right, as to your why. But over time, I realized that why just wasn't enough. Getting a certain title just wasn't enough. Getting a six-figure salary wasn't enough. What was I doing outside of that? So once you even look at your why as sometimes dreams, right, or goals. You can have more than one dream. So your dream might evolve. You might hit that dream and then get a new why or get a new dream. And so as you evolve, your goals tend to evolve too. So right now your goal may be one thing, but at the end of the year or mid-year, you might say, okay, my why has changed, because once you start getting into it and talking with people and building relationships, you might realize this isn't necessarily the route that I necessarily wanted to go, or it might enhance and you might have to pivot a little bit. And so it's important to have people that are invested in you so that you can talk these things through, and it'll give you a better understanding and a better sense of your why. So again, success is not a solo sport. You want people, just looking at it as a team, just like a group text. Some of you get on group text, you have people that you connect with in that way. That if you put out a question, 9 times out of 10, somebody's going to respond. And I think that just having a group of people around you that are there for you and like-minded and want to see you win is where you start. And it may just be 1 or 2 people for now, and it may grow, or some of those people may fall off over time, but always keep keep your why and understand what that looks like, and don't be afraid to pivot if need to.
Yeah, and I mean, my why changes all the time. One is part personal stuff that's going on with you personally, that, missions, visions, what you're a part of changes. And then what's available to you at those times, right? So what's that statement, doing the best you have with what you have at that time, right? So sometimes you need more, you have more, but the why, there's some core whys, right? There's things that are just important to you, your vision. But, for you, you decided to finally write a book, right? Put some stuff down on paper. But that's a I guess, an exhibit of a bigger part of your why. It wasn't like you said, "Oh, I'm writing a book," or you said that it manifested from part of your why. You're like, more people need to hear my voice, hear my advice, and I can't talk to everyone, but my book can get out to everyone. So it's an extension of you,
Yeah,
right? So you're
that's a good lead up, because I had some people want to write a book from the day they can write. That's all they ever wanted to do, and that wasn't. I guess my why wasn't big enough, right? And so I didn't know that was something I could do. So I think the more that you start to getting in your space and you start to get in different circles, your why will start to manifest itself in different ways.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's very powerful. So from building your personal board, whether or not, make sure, I think one of the best advice you gave today to Minda was just the idea that we all need help, but you also need to know what value you can bring to someone else that you are going to ask help for. Always being mindful of what these other people are doing. And then the other, I don't know if it's really a question, but looking at all the questions that came in, the other theme seems to be like, we have an idea that I need you, Minda, only you, as my personal board of advisors, not realizing that I might actually need something or someone else. So I'll use a bigger example of, like, people all want, oh, I want Oprah, but Gail could be the better person for you, right? Or Stedman or someone else that's in her circle could actually be that better person. And what you called fake personal board of directors, I just call, cyber board of directors or mentors. So Oprah is still one of my mentors. I don't hang out with her. I've met her twice, but not in any capacity to ask her for anything. But she pushes me. She motivates me right from afar. So are there people that you've ever, quote unquote, I'll say, gone after, or as I call it, strategically stalked, that then ended up not being the right person, and you found some other gems?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting. I use the Tiffany DeFue example. Now, the woman that went to see in Silicon Valley, I actually had been stalking her, and I thought that she would be that person, right? And through the conversation, she made it very clear that she wasn't taking on any more folks, right? And I didn't ask her for anything, but she was very clear in terms of what she had available. And she's like, you know what? I'm not this person. That's not the way I like to serve, but I know someone who would be great for you. And that's fine too. So I think that, I always say that many of us want to be Beyonce, right? But it takes a lot of work to be Beyonce. And what I realized, Jody, is that I'd rather be Kelly, because Kelly is just as successful, right? But she has her own own lane. And so she has just the same access as, Beyonce in similar ways, so sometimes we have to reimagine what success looks like. It's not the big shiny thing all the time. A lot of people that have helped me in my personal board have been online, and I've never met them face to face. And so it's weird how that happens. So we just have to reimagine what help looks like in this day and age.
See? So I do want to thank you for being here today. Once again, make sure you guys order the memo, order early, because I think it'll end up being one of those bestsellers and off the shelves. As someone who's co-authored 4 books, I understand the pain and the trials and tribulations of getting it out there. So support Minda on that. Follow her and the Urban League Jobs Network and the National Urban League, and even myself online, social media. Get some gems. She's always dropping some knowledge, and she's participating. Minda's going to be in a bunch of different other events. And, definitely check out our digital career success series throughout the year. The one today and the ones that we've been doing over the last, I don't know how many years, are all available on the National Urban League's YouTube page. And what we have coming up next on our Digital Career Success Series is the 4 P's of promotion and funding your venture. So we'll be kind of talking about how to promote yourself, whether or not internally inside a company, or if you are an entrepreneur like Minda and myself, kind of moving throughout. We still need to promote ourselves and ask for raises, continued contracts, and funding your venture. So we'll be switching over to some entrepreneur topics as the focus, but those of you who are still employees elsewhere might be thinking about funding a project of your own, or helping someone else out, or maybe moving into entrepreneurship. So that's what's coming up next. So look out for our emails, tell your friends, and also upload your resume to the Urban League Jobs Network site, because those companies are looking for talented folks that look like you, that have your backgrounds, all different industries, and are part of the National Urban League's full network. So back to, they are part of our personal board, those jobs and those companies that have been supporting the National Urban League for years. So visit the nuljobsnetwork.com to upload your resume, to find out about all the other digital career success series. We're even doing a couple of online virtual career fairs that will be coming up. And of course, I would not be remiss to say that we are trying to get everyone to join us for our national career fair in Indianapolis this coming July. So look out for that information as well. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Minda, thanks again. And thank you, National Urban League and Urban League Jobs Network, for making the Digital Career Success Series a success. Have a great day.